So let's talk about high-end watch mods. Typically, your average modifications will run from $500 to the $1,000 price point. Obviously, the more modifications you do, the higher in cost it's going to be. And also, the types of materials that you decide to use will be a large factor in the total price. Now, there are a lot of vendors for these aftermarket parts, and they generally range around the same price. So a coin edge bezel from one supplier will be around the same price as the bezel from a different supplier. But what makes these parts so expensive is when they start to accumulate. So when you have the bezel, the insert, the crystal, dial, hands, chaptering, all of those stuff, they add up very quickly. To put it into perspective, getting the bezel, the insert, and the crystal alone will run you over $100. So when factoring all of the possible modifications for, let's say, a diver, the movement, dial, hands, bezel, insert, sapphire crystal, chaptering, crown, case back bracelet, all that stuff, you are looking at $500 at the minimum and would typically range from $500 to $1,000 like I said. So what would be considered a high-end mod? There's no official, range for when a mod is considered high-end. It's just something that I coined. I typically would consider a high-end mod to be such if it runs over $1,000 because the watches with practically all of the modifications possible will be around $800, $700, somewhere around there. A common misconception about expensive modded watches is that there's exorbitant labor costs, and that's not really true at all. Labor costs are fixed from one maker to the other. So what separates a $500, $700 mod from a $1,300, $1,500 high-end piece would be the types of materials chosen. So let's take it back a little bit and just talk about why someone would want to spend so much money on a modded watch opposed to spending their money on a piece that's more well known, like something from Seaward or Oris. So just to get out of the way, this is my opinion, so you can take it however way you want. A modded watch is something that is exclusive to you. It is something very special because you had a say in the final outcome of that project. You are able to choose the materials that you want. Do you want a domed sapphire crystal, a flat one, a single dome, low dome, high dome, double dome, blue AR, green AR, clear AR, no AR? You know, the components that you can use for these builds is endless. I'd be very surprised to see someone across the street that has a modded watch that looks exactly like mine. So it provides you with some sentimental value and exclusivity, which is something that I really look for when I pick out my watches that will be staying in the collection, because I don't want something that everybody else has unless it's a well-known icon like the Submariner. So with all that said, these custom pieces, or this entire project of high-end watch builds, was a project that I started because I wanted to build myself a few personal pieces. And that's because I never really had my own work to show off to other people. If they asked me to show them some of the work that I've done, I wasn't able to just bring out a custom watch from my wrist. I had to go on my Instagram and show them some pictures of it instead. So I decided to build a few custom pieces for myself. And it took a long time to source, design this entire thing. And I didn't want just any mod. I wanted a high-end mod. I wanted a very special piece, something above typical standard modded watches. So the parts that I used were very sought after, and as a result, these are quite expensive. But that only aids in the excitement because I know that I have something that is, one, unique to just me, because I'm probably going to be one of the few people that have this very watch. And two, it's going to be a cool piece because I know these are rare parts. So just to get out of the way, I want to let you guys know that I did make another version of this very watch. So it's not a one-to-one copy, but it is basically the same watch. There's just small changes that would otherwise be unnoticed. You'll be able to tell those differences, and I'll actually tell them to you when I bring out the two side by side. And just a fair warning, these are going to be pretty expensive pieces, and I hope you guys understand why after I give a full breakdown of all the parts that went into this build. I intentionally sourced these parts not because they're expensive, but because they are exclusive, hard to get, and it only adds in the excitement of when you actually get to own that piece. So let's change perspective and take a look at the HYDRA Mod. So just to get things started, I'll give a full breakdown of all the parts that went into this build. So powering this watch is the original Seiko 6013 caliber. The dial is the Save the Ocean Great White Shark dial. The handset is from an original SPDX001 Marine Master 300. The chapter ring is a brushed stainless steel with etched indices. The crystal is a clear AR double dome sapphire crystal with no bevel edge. The bezel is a 120 click coin edge bezel. The insert is a ceramic Yachtmaster style insert. The crown is a Signdest crown. The case is the limited edition CT701 case, which features a helium escape valve. The case back is a simple all polished stainless steel case back. The bracelet is from Strapcode and it's the Super Jubilee bracelet. And to finish it off, I used a clasp from the original SPDX001 Marine Master 300, which features a ratcheting diver's extension. So I picked the 6015 movement because it is arguably the highest quality caliber that can be obtained from Seiko. The next step up would be the 8L35, which is found on the high-end Seiko watches that aren't part of Grand Seiko like the Marine Master 300 line. I went with the 6015 over the NH35 for 3 reasons: accuracy, materials, and power reserve. So the 6015 has a different mainspring barrel and adjustment lever. The balance spring and mainspring are made from Seiko's specially formulated Spron 510 material, opposed to the Spron 5110 material found on the NH35. Now, the difference in material makes the 6015 better suited to handle temperature and positional variations. It also allows the mainspring to unwind more uniformly than the one on the NH35. And as for accuracy, the 6015 has better accuracy of -15 to 25 seconds a day, opposed to -35 to +45 of the NH35. I know both of these can be regulated to be as accurate as 0 seconds per day, but the 6015 does have a tighter tolerance range. Lastly, the 6015 has a 50-hour power reserve opposed to the 40-hour power reserve on the NH35, which is again due to the different material used to make the mainspring. So in general, the 6015 is a better constructed movement, but that doesn't mean the NH35 is a bad movement. The price difference between these two movements is quite significant. So if you don't care about the factory tolerances or power reserve, then it is economically better to go for the NH35. However, since the 6015 is technically better, I went for this movement for this high-end build. Now immediately, I'm attracted to the dial. It stands out so well. So this is the newly released special edition Seiko Save the Ocean Great White Shark dial. I love the blue sunburst effect and the texturing found on the dial. It's definitely up there with my favorite Seiko dials of all time. I also like the date inclusion opposed to the day date found on the turtle versions. And the large indices make the time easy to read and allows for a lot of lume to be applied, which is why I went for an original Seiko dial. I wanted the Lume bright. Most aftermarket dials have weaker lume that does not last nearly as long as Lume bright, so I made sure to go with an OEM part. As for the chapter ring, I went with brushed stainless steel because it is my favorite, and I went with the version with etched indices because the dial doesn't have any printed on it. So functionally, it makes sense to have indices on the chapter ring. To match the dial, I went with the SPDX001 Marine Master 300 handset. This is the original Seiko handset from a Marine Master 300 and not an aftermarket one. So I wanted the original handset because of 1, the construction, and 2, the lume. Most aftermarket MM300 handsets are made from an extremely thin piece of metal with little to no finishing at all. They are generally all brushed or all polished with mediocre lume. The original MM300 handset is made from thicker, substantial pieces of metal and have a lot of details going on. The flats are brushed, but if you look at the edges, they're chamfered and polished, which play with the light incredibly. Plus, the handset also uses Lume bright, which means it will match the lume found on the dial both when it's charged and uncharged. Now I could have gone with the SBDX017 handset, which are still rare but relatively less difficult to source and not as nearly expensive as the SBDX001 handset. But the 017 uses a different type of Seiko Lume. It's the updated version that has a light green shade to it when it's uncharged, but actually glows brighter and lasts longer than the original Lume formula. It was quite an investment to get these hands, over $200 alone, but it was well worth it to see that the charged and uncharged lume matched with the Great White Shark dial perfectly. Plus, the brushed flats and polished chamfers are little details that I really like. And in the realm of watches, luxury watches especially, we are paying an excess of money for these small details. So moving on, I went with the Yachtmaster style insert because I felt that it matched quite well with the dial. I have seen others use this combination before with the turtle version, but I happen to like the samurai version more. Now to match the insert, I had to go with this crown, the Crystaltimes CT228 crown, I believe. The reason why is because the bezel insert is recessed with a matte finished and polished numbers and indices that stick out. The crown is exactly the same design with the matte finish recessed and polished S that sticks out. These two parts complement each other quite well. So for the case on this particular watch, this is my personal watch, so I decided to go with the limited edition CT701 case. First, it matches the dial perfectly since it is configured for a 3 o'clock case and movement. And I personally love how it is a limited edition case. It is chunkier than the typical SKX style case and chunkier than the CT705 case, which is practically the same case as this, except it doesn't have a HE valve and it does have more contouring done on it. I just really like how the crown guards look in conjunction with the crown. The parts integrate with each other quite well, and I am really happy that I picked this case. So for the crystal, I went with a clear AR double dome sapphire crystal. I went with clear AR opposed to blue AR or some other colored AR to allow the dial to stand out even more. And the no bevel design so that it flows with the bezel insert perfectly with a seamless transition. So since I will be wearing this piece, I had to think of a bracelet that will be well suited for this piece. So I went with the Strapco Super Jubilee bracelet because it has solid end links, solid individual links, and the Jubilee bracelet is just the most comfortable bracelet I have ever tried. The bracelet also features screwed individual links, which makes out changing links quite easy and provides a solid construction. And of course, to tie everything together, I could have just ended it there, but I took an extra step and went crazy because this is a high-end mod. I decided to further upgrade the bracelet and install a new clasp. So this clasp is overkill for sure, but I wanted to use the SBDX001 clasp. This has an incredible amount of finishing done to it, and it is really well made. So we can see that the flats are brushed and the edges are actually chamfered and polished. So they match with the design of the handset extremely well. As for construction, it is very solid. Solid opening and closing from this lock right here, which also has zero play. Is actually quite incredible. There is zero side to side play here. So this clasp does feature a solid milled clasp, so no bent steel here, and the main star, the diver's extension, which allows for on-the-go adjustment without having to take off your bracelet for when your wrists swell up during the day. It's an extremely useful function that I've been using for years now because I do have the diver's extension found on my Submariner, the glide lock system. This is equally as functional and equally as nice to have. Since I use it so much on my Submariner, I wanted it on my HYDRA as well, so I had to make the investment to upgrade to this clasp. So that was definitely a mouthful of information, but these were all the factors that I had to take into consideration when planning out this build. It was well worth the work I had to put in because this is an incredible piece that I love wearing. It is aesthetically and functionally exceptional. So before anybody asks, I did make another one. I actually made 2 HYDRA mods because I had a feeling that someone else might want the chance to own this incredible timepiece. And so it is almost exactly the same as my personal one here, except that the second one that I made uses the CT705 case opposed to the CT701, which I feel like the majority of you guys would prefer more. It has more contouring done on the case opposed to mine. It is a less chunky design, and so it's more in line with the aesthetic and feel of the Seiko SKX style cases. The second difference would be an upgrade, I guess. I made sure to put in an original SKX case back just to aid in the aesthetic opposed to the boring all polished one. So this is a brand new sterile SKX case back. You can see the stickers still on it. So this whole watch is a brand new piece, never been worn, and so it is up for sale if you are interested. The only difference is this one doesn't come with the bracelet or the clasp, but that can be arranged if you want me to add those as well. So the same Save the Ocean Great White Shark dial, SPDX001 Marine Master 300 handset, 6R15 movements, signed as crown, insert, coinage bezel, and all that good stuff. And as I've just described, the materials are premium quality, so the price might not be something you expect from a typical SKX mod that you've had before. The materials alone run for quite a bit of money, so please do know that this will be rather an expensive purchase. And so yeah, here are the 2 pieces. These are both high-end builds that I am incredibly proud to present you guys, and hopefully one of you guys will get the chance to own it as well. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel if you like this content, and let me know what you guys think about these mods in the comment section below. So until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video.